Driving the truck is the easy part. Managing your time is the hardest part. Being able to manage your clocks and maximize the time that you're away from your family to be as productive as possible is the hardest part. I started this week out on Wednesday. I managed to get 3 loads delivered and another load that is just 2 hours from its delivery. I got 2,924 miles in 5 days. That's pretty good. Let's take a look at the week and see where I planned to stop and where I stopped and how it worked out for me. Because you know I don't do exit ramp parking. I was talking to somebody the other day and I was telling them how I never wind up sleeping on exit ramps, and very rarely do I struggle to find a parking place. There have been a couple of times where I've struggled to find a parking place, but that's usually because I'm pushing my clock to the maximum and I didn't plan well enough. I like to always have a plan and a backup plan. My plan today was I would leave the house at 5:30 a.m. My pickup was in McDonough, Georgia. Now that's a little extra time than I need to get to that drop and hook, but wanted to give myself a little leeway there. Always give yourself more time. I was always taught under promise, over deliver. My plan is to go to Mount Vernon, Illinois. I'm going to shut down in Mount Vernon, Illinois. There are 3 truck stops there. I'll be shutting down at 6 p.m. Shouldn't have any trouble finding a parking place, right? 3 truck stops should be super easy. Of course, I still had a backup plan. The backup plan in this particular case is really easy. All 3 of those truck stops have paid parking. So I can go into the app for TA or Pilot and see how many parking places are left. Now the Hux is a Flying J, but it is a Hux, which is a third-party Flying J, and so they don't have an app for their parking. At least if they do, I don't know what it is, but they have a large parking lot in the back and they always tend to have parking. At least at 6 p.m. they usually have parking. The good thing about this particular Hux Flying J is there's a Walmart right next door. I could go next door and get a salad. Yeah, trying to lose a little weight. My annual physical's coming up, so I want to try and have the lowest number on there for weight possible. Working on it. Okay, there wasn't any parking at the Hux, at least no free parking, so it was time to run over to the TA. Go over there and I can check the TA and see if there's any free parking, and I can go across to the Pilot. There's a side street there I can cross straight over and I'll be able to check it out. And if there's no free parking at any of them, then I will make a choice and purchase a space. I was at the end of my clock, so I needed to find a place in a hurry. I was at the end of my drive clock. All the drivers know this, but those of you who are not drivers, we have an 11-hour drive clock. The drive clock starts and stops. We start and stop it by putting ourselves in on-duty, off-duty, or sleeper berth mode. But whenever the truck is moving more than 4.5 miles an hour, it is going to go into drive mode. This is why every once in a while you've seen a truck creep through a rest area or a truck stop or shipper or receiver doing about 4 miles an hour. They just don't want to hit that drive line quite yet. They might be finishing their break. They might be getting to the all the way to the road before they hit it. There's all kinds of reasons. When I got over to the Pilot, I saw several free spaces. Looked around, said, maybe this one. Then I looked down at the end and said, wait a minute, those end ones look like they'll be easy to get out of. I want to be sure I can get out of them pretty easily because since I'm shutting down around 6 p.m., I'm going to be able to leave about 4:30 a.m. I want to pick me a nice, easy spot to get out. That corner spot is not a reserved space, so that looks like a good one for me. Now, there is a danger with current corner spaces. Every once in a while, you got a truck sticking out in the space next to you, which puts you in a bind. This time it worked out. I got 570 miles, 10 hours, and 52 minutes on my drive clock. I had 8 minutes left on my drive clock. Truck drivers are always telling me no matter how well you plan, something unexpected can happen, like a trailer problem that causes you to be sleeping on a ramp. I don't agree with that. I believe you should still have a plan and a backup plan. Well, I encountered a trailer problem. Picked this trailer up in Edwardsville, and it had a problem. The ABS light was on. Now, you got to get that ABS light fixed because that little light in the back's tattling on you. A little yellow light in the back left corner of a trailer tells everybody the ABS is not working. All right, there's several things you can do when you encounter this situation. You can take it to somewhere like a TA or a Pilot or a Love's, and you can get it fixed there. Well, that's going to take quite a bit of time, and it's going to cost some money. The company's going to wind up paying that money because it's their trailer. Or I could take it to, if you're close enough, you can take it to the terminal in Hazelwood, which is what I did. One advantage to taking it to a company terminal versus taking it to a Love's or a TA or a Pilot, when you go to those places, you tend to have to wait an hour, 2 hours. I've had to wait 10 hours before they could do the maintenance on the trailer that was necessary. Usually the terminal wants to get you in and out, and they tend to get you through there a lot faster. And this is different at every company I've worked at. At Millis, the terminals, some of the terminals, they had limited hours they were open, and as a result, that made things a little more difficult. At Cheeseman, they had 2 terminals, and those terminals are pretty quick to get a road tractor trailer in. They work real hard to get you through. I'm real impressed with Arter Express. Now, it did take me 30 minutes before I got into the shop, and after I got the trailer fixed, I still had a problem. As soon as I hit the interstate, the yellow light came back on. So I turned around, headed back to the shop. Got to get this done. My clock is now ticking just like that biological clock of Marissa Tormes and my cousin Vinny. That sucker's clicking away. I want to take a second to apologize to the driver who shouted out to me while I was backing up and getting ready to take the truck for a second test drive. My clock was ticking. I was behind schedule. I didn't have time to stop and chat with you. I'll run into you at the terminal again. You can just remind me, okay? Sorry about that. I'll get you a Coke. All right, that second repair did the trick. Now, that threw off my planning a little bit, so I had to look at it, plan things, because now my 14-hour clock, that's your day clock, has caught up with my drive clock. When your day clock catches up with your drive clock, they both start ticking down together. You can't stop your drive clock at that point. Now, there are tricks that can be done, like you can do a 2-hour break and all that, but that's for another video. Anyway, I realized that I would have to shut down. I looked at my map. I took a look on my trip planning and looked in different apps, and I looked like I was going to have to shut down in Springfield, Missouri. Springfield, Missouri is the home of Prime Inc. That particular Pilot Flying J truck stop tends to fill up rather early. So I took a look in the app, and there were only 6 parking places left, so I went ahead and reserved one. Now, what happens if you reserve a parking place and you don't make it that far? Maybe something goes wrong and you get backed up in traffic and you don't make it. What's going to happen? Well, you chalk that up to experience. If it's prior to 12 o'clock that day, you can get a refund of your points or your dollars if you paid in dollars. I paid in points. But if it's after 12 o'clock, you're not supposed to be able to. I think if you call and raise enough cane, they'll probably give you a credit for another parking day somewhere. But that wasn't a problem. I made it there. And I did actually see a couple of free spaces, but I'd already paid for that parking place, so I got the parking place. And this is something else you may want to consider when you're looking at companies that you're going to go to, and you can ask another driver about that. Is it a case like Millis Heartland where they have several terminals? Millis and Heartland, they have terminals all over the place, and this was an advantage because I could use those terminals parking lots to extend my day. I just added them all to my GPS and put them in my route planning when I needed them. At Cheeseman, I had the advantage of Crown facilities, so I put the Crown facilities into my GPS and I was able to look for them. Now, there are some of these shippers and receivers that I'm able to park at, but I don't know which ones, and I sleep a lot better if I've got a lined parking place. If I know I'm in a legal parking place, because otherwise I have this fear that somebody's going to knock on my door, and every time I hear a noise, it's like, oh crap, they're knocking on my door, it's time for me to have to move. And I don't want to do that. And so that's why I try to always make sure that I'm in a legal parking place for the night. So for today, I only got 9 hours and 13 minutes on the drive line, and that's because my 14 passed my 11. I accomplished 551 miles. All right, the next day it was time to head on and continue my journey to Wilmer, Texas. In Wilmer, I made my delivery, which was a drop and hook, and then I went right up the street to my pickup, which was also a drop and hook, and I headed back north. I'm going to Edwardsville, Illinois with this load. Hey, that's a nice run back and forth. I was going to stop in Atoka, Oklahoma. Atoka, Oklahoma is pretty cool. It's got a Love's, a Pilot, and right next door to the Love's is a restaurant, a truck stop restaurant, and there's also a Walmart. Now, I'm on a diet, so I'm not going to go to the truck stop restaurant as much as I like their good food. So I was going to go next door and get a salad from Walmart. Wasn't to be. I got 594 miles in 10 hours, 34 minutes. It wasn't to be because they didn't have any salads. That kind of small Walmart apparently doesn't have any. So I had to grill me up some chicken. All right, Saturday morning, I went ahead and made my delivery to Edwardsville, Illinois, and my next pickup was going to be in St. James, Missouri. And then I'm going to head back down to Texas. All right, if you run out of time at a shipper or receiver, and this was a drop and hook, but I did run out of time at the shipper. If you run out of time at a shipper or receiver, you can use something called personal conveyance. And the FMCSA allows you to use personal conveyance to get to the nearest safe parking. Well, the first place that I found for nearest safe parking wasn't very good. It had signs that says, "Don't park your truck here, we'll tow it." That's not a good place to park. I would not be able to sleep because every time I heard something, I would be sure somebody's coming to wake me up. So I drove on to the next place that I could find. Now, some companies limit how much time you can spend on PC. Some companies limit how far you can drive on PC. The FMCSA does not actually limit how far or how much time you can be on PC. Just keep in mind that if you do something stupid, like drive a couple hundred miles on PC, you'd really better be able to explain yourself. You don't want to be driving to the shipper or receiver or to the terminal or to your next load. And it doesn't even have to be in the direction of the next load. If the nearest safe parking place to your shipper or receiver is the wrong direction, you got to take it. Fortunately for me, I was able to pull out my apps and I was able to find a place in Cape Girardeau, Missouri. It's called Rhodes Truck Stop. Turned out to be a great place to stop, and they have a pizza and salad bar right next door to the travel center, which is excellent. Now, I got there at 4:51 p.m. and the lot didn't seem to fill up that night. There was actually spaces available when I got up in the early morning hours, which is really a good thing to find. It's something to make a note of. Put a note in your GPS or whatever you use for your route planning, because when you find a truck stop that doesn't fill up overnight, that's a good thing to know where to find. I accomplished 662 miles today. This was the actual best day that I was rolling. And I had 10 hours and 48 minutes on drive time. So there was only 12 minutes left on drive time. This load cannot deliver until Monday. That means from 0001 to 23:59 on Monday. The problem with that is I will get there at 12 p.m. on Sunday and then have to sit around until midnight. By the time I reach it to the delivery, my cycle clock, the 70-hour clock, will only have 11 hours on it anyway. Did the math, and if I drove hard, in other words, at the governor hitting 70 miles an hour, and it's a Sunday, there's not going to be a lot of traffic, I can get my 34-hour break in if I shut down prior to hitting 8 hours and didn't have to take a 30-minute break. All right, the math was really tight. When I looked at it, the math was really tight. And the problem was with the fifth clock. The fifth clock is the actual time clock. I can't make that thing stop. There's no way to stop it for anything. So I had to figure this out, and I looked at it. There couldn't be any stops, any unnecessary stops for any reason. I looked at it. I found that there were 3 truck stops. I looked at them, and I said, whichever one is the farthest one that I can make prior to hitting 8 hours. I need to stop before hitting 8 hours, because when you hit 8 hours, you got to take a 30-minute break. A 30-minute break would put me really tight on making this. I'm going to need every extra minute that I can to be able to make this. So I will finish my 34-hour break at 20:22 tonight. I'll then do my pre-trip, and I will drive the final distance to get to my delivery. And when I get to my delivery in Claiborne, Texas, I should be able to get there and have an hour left before midnight. It's tight, and this is why you've got to be able to plan. And again, I had to run this truck at the governor to be able to make it far enough to put Claiborne in range. Otherwise, I would have had to just drive on to Claiborne, wait until I did my delivery, then I would have had to take another break to get a 34 in. You'd rather your 10-hour sleep break be part of your 34. That way you don't have to take an extra 10 hours and make it 44 hours of break. You just don't want to do it. If you can plan and you can manage, it's the best part of this job. And remember, make sure you're enjoying every day at work.